You step outside. The air bites your lungs before you even take a full breath. Your fingers go numb in under a minute. Somewhere behind you, the wind is already erasing your footprints. This is not a bad winter morning. This is an ordinary Tuesday, 20,000 years ago, and your ancestors lived here on purpose. For most of human history, an ice age wasn't a headline. It was just the weather. You were born into it, you grew up in it, and you were expected to survive it, every single day, for your entire life. So here is the question worth sitting with. If you were dropped into that world right now, with nothing but your body and your modern instincts, how long would you actually last? And understanding exactly why tells you something surprising about what it actually took to be human. Let's start with the cold itself, because it is worse than you think. During the last glacial maximum, roughly 20,000 years ago, average temperatures across much of Ice Age Europe sat far below anything most modern humans have ever experienced outside a freezer. Glaciers covered huge stretches of the northern hemisphere. Sea levels dropped so low that Britain was connected to mainland Europe by dry land. Wind chill could drop exposed skin to frostbite in minutes. Your modern body is not built for this. You have thin skin, minimal body hair, and a layer of subcutaneous fat that evolved for temperate savannas, not glacial tundra. Without help, you would start losing core body heat almost immediately. Hypothermia doesn't announce itself. It creeps in as confusion, clumsiness, and a strange, dangerous feeling of warmth right before the body starts shutting down. So how did anyone survive this, night after night, for generations? It's technology, and it's older than most people assume. Anthropologist Ian Gilligan has spent years studying exactly this question, using clues from stone tools and climate data to reconstruct when humans actually started wearing tailored clothing, not just draped skins. His research points to a clear pattern. Fitted, sewn clothing appears and intensifies right alongside the coldest glacial periods. This wasn't fashion. It was the difference between life and death. Picture the tools involved. Eyed needles made from bone, sharp enough to pierce hide, small enough to thread with sinew. Scrapers to work animal skin soft. Awls to punch precise holes. None of this survives easily in the archaeological record, which is part of why we underestimate it. But where we do find it, the message is the same. Ice Age humans weren't just draping themselves in fur like a blanket. They were engineering multi-layered, wind-resistant, insulated clothing systems, thousands of years before anyone wrote the word technology. No jacket, no boots, no gloves, just skin, in air cold enough to hurt to breathe. You wouldn't last the night, but clothing alone doesn't save you. You still need to eat, and this is where the Ice Age gets genuinely terrifying. Plants are mostly gone. Whatever grew in a temperate climate is buried under snow or simply doesn't grow here anymore. Your calories have to come from something else, and that something else is enormous, dangerous, and actively trying not to be eaten. Woolly mammoths, woolly rhinoceroses, giant deer with antlers spanning over 3 meters, cave lions, cave bears. This is not a gentle landscape. Hunting a mammoth with a stone-tipped spear sounds almost absurd until you look at the evidence of how it was actually done. Not one person charging an animal the size of a small building. Coordinated groups. Ambush sites. Natural traps like bogs, ravines, or river crossings where a massive animal's own weight and momentum became a weakness. Site after archaeological site across Ice Age Europe and Siberia shows repeated mammoth kills concentrated in specific, strategic locations, which tells us this wasn't luck. It was planning, communication, and an intimate, generational knowledge of the landscape and the animal's behavior. And then there's the burial evidence, which might be the most striking clue of all. At the site of Sunghir, in what is now Russia, archaeologists uncovered graves dating back roughly 34,000 years, contain bodies adorned with thousands of carefully carved ivory beads, each one taking real time and skill to make. Why does this matter for survival? Because it tells you these communities weren't just scraping by. They had enough surplus, enough stability, enough social structure to spend hundreds of hours on art and ritual instead of pure subsistence. Survival at this level required more than muscle. It required cooperation complex enough to support specialists, elders, and shared knowledge passed down with precision. Could you do any of this? Could you track a herd for days across featureless snow, read weather changes in the color of the sky, know exactly which frozen river was safe to cross? Almost certainly not without years of training that started in early childhood, generation after generation. Now let's talk about fire, because fire changes everything, and losing it was catastrophic. A fire wasn't just warmth. It was cooked food, which made calories easier to absorb and dangerous bacteria easier to kill. It was protection from predators circling in the dark. It was light to work by during the brutally long winter nights. And it required constant, skilled maintenance. You needed dry tinder in a world where everything was wet or frozen. You needed to know how to bank coals so they'd survive until morning. You needed backup methods, because a fire that goes out at the wrong moment, in the wrong storm, could mean the whole group doesn't make it to sunrise. Modern humans, dropped into this world, wouldn't just struggle to start a fire from scratch. Most of us would struggle to keep one alive. So let's reconstruct what a single day actually looked like. You wake before dawn, in a shelter built from mammoth bones and hides, layered thick enough to trap body heat from everyone huddled inside. The fire has been kept low but alive through the night by whoever took the watch. Breakfast is whatever was preserved from the last successful hunt. Frozen meat, maybe dried and fat-rich to maximize the calories your body desperately needs just to stay warm. You check your clothing for wear, because a torn seam today could be frost by tomorrow. Then you go to work, tracking, scouting, maintaining tools, teaching a child how to read the wind, preparing hides, watching the horizon for both prey and danger. Every single task connects back to the same unforgiving requirement. Stay warm, stay fed, stay alive until tomorrow, and then do it again. Here's the counterintuitive twist. We tend to imagine Ice Age life as primitive, as something humanity endured on the way to something better. But the evidence suggests the opposite. Surviving an Ice Age required some of the most sophisticated cooperative behavior in our entire species' history. Tailored clothing engineering, coordinated big game hunting strategies, long-distance knowledge transfer across generations. Enough social trust and surplus to bury the dead with beauty and meaning, not just necessity. Researcher James Sussman, who has spent years studying how humans across history have related to work, energy, and time, makes a point that fits perfectly here. For the vast majority of human history, survival wasn't about individual heroics. It was about deeply cooperative systems, refined over thousands of years, that made the impossible merely difficult. And that's really the mirror this points back to you, right now, in whatever warm, climate-controlled room you're in as you hear this. The comfort you take for granted, insulated walls, food from a store instead of a hunt, light at the flick of a switch, exists because thousands of generations before you solved problems that would have killed almost anyone without that inherited knowledge. You didn't invent any of it. You inherited it. So no, you wouldn't survive a single day in the Ice Age, not with modern skin, modern instincts, and none of the accumulated knowledge that made it possible. But that's not really a failure. It's a measure of how much your ancestors figured out, one freezing, dangerous, meticulously coordinated day at a time, so that you'd never have to. You step outside again, in your own century this time. The air doesn't bite. Your fingers stay warm. And somewhere underneath that simple comfort is 30,000 years of people who made sure you'd never have to know how close it always was to going the other way.